Some Things Never Change by My Lost and Found. Read by My Lost and Found. Summary. It's easy to forget that All Might was quirkless when looking at him now. The all-powerful symbol of peace couldn't have been a quirkless stickbug of a teenager, but it was true. And even if being quirkless was more common back then, he still had his fair share of the quirkless experience, aka getting kidnapped. Like, a lot. Some past and present experiences regarding All Might's experience being quirkless. Chapter 1. I was just sick? Summary. No one had ever come close to noticing Izuku's kidnappings before, but when he misses a day of training on the beach with All Might because of one, he might have to give some real answers for once. Izuku knew he wouldn't be able to weasel his way out of the questions this time. Izuku has been training with All Might for 6 months now. Over that period, he'd been kidnapped a couple of times, as per usual, but before now, he'd always been able to brush off suspicion from his new mentor. 25 minutes late? It was because he overslept, not because he was kidnapped on the way here. Sore hand? It was because he picked up that washing machine wrong yesterday, not because he had to dislocate his thumb to escape some tricky handcuffs the evening before. But this time, he had been no call, no show for an entire day because some over-the-top motherfuckers decided it would be a great idea to ship Toshi and him on a boat to another country. The two of them had escaped before they made it too far into international waters, but rowing back in their little lifeboat had taken a while and left the two of them with suspicious sunburns. So yeah, Izuku wasn't sure how he was getting out of this one as he approached Yagi on the beach.
"Young Midoriya, it's good to see you're okay,"
the skeletal man said, eyeing him up and down. Izuku doubted his attempt to cover up the worst of the burns with his foundation really helped. It was good enough in passing that his mom hadn't noticed when he passed her that morning briefly, but under scrutinization...
"What happened yesterday?"
Yagi continued.
"I couldn't get a hold of you when you didn't show up."
Izuku's mouth was trying its best to regurgitate the story he cooked up.
I'm sorry, Yagi. It's just that I was feeling really sick, so I stayed home. And my phone was dead because I forgot to plug it in last night because I wasn't really feeling well."
Yagi hummed.
"Let me make sure I understand. You were so sick yesterday, you forgot to tell me you couldn't make it, even though you tried to train when you had the flu before. You couldn't answer my calls or texts because your phone was dead, even though when I texted it said, waiting for phone to come back into service range before text can be delivered, which doesn't happen when a phone is dead. And you were so sick you stayed home, yet you have a pretty harsh sunburn."
Izuku wilted under his mentor's investigative stare. Sometimes he forgot how smart Yagi can be. Sure, sometimes it seemed as though he's got 2 brain cells bouncing around in his head, but when those brain cells collide...
"Young Midoriya, you can tell me the truth. I'll understand."
There really was no way of getting out of this, was there? Izuku had never told an outsider about his activities before. He'd never had to. No one wondered where he was when he disappeared. Sometimes Kacchan would bring it up, but Izuku would dodge the question, and then dodge the inevitable beating he would get from not answering. His mom was used to him being scatterbrained and having a bad sense of direction and losing track of time at this point, so she didn't question it. But someone had noticed. All Might had noticed, and now he had to tell him. Izuku sighed. "I'm sorry. It's just that I know you won't probably understand, but I'm quirkless, and that means I have to deal with some things that other people don't. It's just normal and not anything to freak out about, but I was kidnapped. Again. It just ended up taking me longer to get back than normal.
Waking up on a boat in international waters is a bit out of the ordinary, even for me.
The quirkless boy was afraid that All Might would freak out and question him. People just didn't understand that this was normal. But to his surprise, the blonde just nodded calmly.
If you missed an entire day of training, how long did it take you to escape?
Yagi asked. Oh, well, Izuku stuttered. This was going surprisingly well. I was taken on my early morning walk around 5 a.m., and I got home about 7 p.m., so I guess it was 14 hours. But in my defense, I was unconscious for most of them. The sedative they used wasn't one that I was used to, so it took quite a while for my body to flush it from my system. It also took a good couple hours to row all the way back to the mainland.
That is a pretty interesting kidnapping, even if it took you so long to escape.
Yagi chuckled softly.
One of the most interesting I experienced was waking up in China after getting taken off this very beach when I was a little older than you. It was quite the adventure finding my way back home.
Izuku paused his racing thoughts. Why was All Might getting kidnapped as a teenager? As a pro hero, he could understand, but as a teen?
I guess that quirkless kidnappings hadn't changed much since back in my time,
Yagi mused. What? Izuku stuttered out. He didn't understand, unless...
Oh,
Yagi said.
I guess I never told you. I too was quirkless before One for All, which meant I deal with my fair share of kidnappings back in the day.
That made sense. No wonder Yagi was taking it so well. He wasn't an outsider like Izuku thought. He grew up in the same world Izuku did, the one where kidnappings were commonplace and no more than an inconvenience or funny story. Izuku smiled brightly at his mentor.
You really woke up in another country once? So far, I rarely find myself out of the prefecture, let alone the country. I've only had a couple noteworthy kidnappings myself, though there was this one time I was kidnapped by this weird cult.
Yagi smiled back at his successor.
Humorous? Yeah, I was taken by them twice when I was still quirkless. They are definitely weird.
I know, right? What's their deal? Izuku and Yagi didn't end up getting much done that day. It was nice to have another person who understood. Someone who had lived through the same experiences, who he could share stories with. He was forever thankful that he had Hitoshi, but most of the time they were getting kidnapped together. It definitely led to some funny inside jokes and a running banter, but it was nice to hear new stories and get to share his own for the first time. It was nice to have another person who had lived Izuku's normal. Okay, yeah, so here with more of this. I hope you guys are enjoying. I am, if the audio is a bit different, it's because I am at a house for, I've come back home for Thanksgiving, but I'm not at my house because they're, interesting thing, they're filming a horror movie at my house. So I don't get to come home for Thanksgiving, so my family had to rent out a place, but that's fucking cool. It's gonna be on Netflix, so yeah, that's fun. But anyway, yeah, so if the audio is weird, that's why. But I'm recording a bunch of things in bulk over Thanksgiving break, so I can be prepared for midterms. My first one is in a week. What? Anyway, yes. But yeah, okay, so some of you might know, not the biggest fan of All Might. He's fine. He's great, whatever. But I do enjoy All Might bashing more than I enjoy him being the genuine parental or whatever and all that good stuff. I don't know. There's something about that I enjoy. But sometimes it is nice to have him being I don't know, a good mentor figure, even if I still had a little bit of bashing in here, yes, his 2 brain cells. I don't know, I can't help it. But it's funny, I'm not his biggest fan, but in all like the fics that I've written so far, he's a good character. I don't know. Maybe there's some like subconscious like stuff like, oh yes, I like him. I don't know. But yeah, I really like this one, even though like not a lot happens. I don't know. I like got, I think it was from a comment on like an earlier one where they gave me some ideas for this and I was like, this is great. I need to do this. Yes. So, hope you enjoyed. Hope the audio's not fucking weird cuz there's going to be a whole bunch like this. But yeah, I'll see you next time. I'm inside your fridge.